Greetings, fellow nerds, and welcome to yet another episode of Two Nerds vs. the Internet. My name is Andrew, and I am the resident nerd and host. Tag along each week as I'm joined by one of my fellow nerds as we discuss and debate a wide variety of topics across several different fandoms, and giving our point of views and telling you why we think it's the best and why you should agree with us. So, with that, let me introduce today's special guest, Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. What's the nerdiest thing you've done in the last week?
Probably hanging out at a board game cafe, not to actually play board games, but to play a 4-hour long game of Commander.
Board Game Cafe. Tell me more about this. What is a Board Game Cafe?
Well, the one that we have here is a $5 cover. You walk in, they have about, probably 500 plus games on the wall, and you can literally sit there and play all day long any games they have as much as you want. And got some good food there. Got some paninis, got some beers, got some sliced apples.
Hey,
Yeah.
that sounds like a good time. Being able to have a little bit of a snack, play a new game. So you played Magic the Gathering. Interesting. That's one we haven't gotten into yet. What are your thoughts on playing Magic in a place like that?
In a place like that, I like it a lot. Definitely on the night we went because there's another group that plays whenever we go there. It's like a Magic night there. But I like it to be quiet due to the fact that you can really focus on other people. But whenever you're in a kind of more populated area, I guess it's more of a social thing than a game. You're not paying as much attention to the game. You're more just there having fun with friends.
Absolutely. And isn't that what playing Commander in Magic is all about? Because I know that's what you were playing.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I'm only playing for the social aspect and the fun of it. I'm not out there playing CEDH trying to beat everyone on turn 3 with infinite combos.
That's one strategy. I usually don't go for that one, but well, that sounds like a good time. What did I do nerdy this week? I read an entire Superman book in about 3 or 4 days in preparation for the new Superman movie. I loved it.
Which we just discussed the Superman movie before we started recording.
Well, yeah, I'm very hyped about it. I mean, a big nerd here. I gotta be hyped for these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, if I went to movies, I would probably be hyped too. But the last movie I saw in theaters was with you, which was the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Which is a great movie.
Yes, but that was also like 4 years ago or something like that.
Yes, it was. It was quite a while ago. So it's interesting that you said you're at a board game cafe, because what are we talking about today, Chris?
Oh, well, that would be board games.
Board games. And not just your grandma's board games of Monopoly, Sorry, and Trouble. We'll talk about those, but there's definitely a lot more to the world of board games. Chris mentions this board game cafe with hundreds of them. Most people probably can only name like 10. And it's going to be Sorry, Monopoly, Trouble, because those are the classics. Those are the ones that everyone knows. Those are the ones everyone has some kind of a memory or attachment to, because that's what they grew up on. The good news is, in today's age, there's so many different types of games for so many different types of players, and I really wanted to talk about this topic with Chris because he and I are both big lovers of different types of board games, some that we have very similar interests in, and I thought it would be good to kind of talk about what there is to offer in the world of board games beyond just having to play Monopoly with that one friend who actually knows the house rules. But then you have the other friend who actually hates the house rules because the house rules make the game last 10 times longer than it should.
By the one friend, you mean you. You're the one that can't stand house rules of Monopoly.
Can't stand house rules.
Hey, I barely even had house rules because truthfully growing up, I always wanted to play board games and my family did not. Mm-hmm. And the only way I could trick my family into playing board games was playing Upwards, actually, which is Scrabble, except for you can stack the tiles on top of other letters to make new words. It's actually very fun. It could just be the nostalgia, but I love it.
Hey.
It was the only way I could trick my family into playing board games. So back then I didn't know much.
That's
didn't
okay.
Even play Monopoly with me.
That's okay. Whatever game tickles your fancy. And like I said, today, how many different word games can you think of? Because there used to be just a Scrabble. And now you have Upwards, which came out sometime after.
Bananagrams.
Our
go-to all the time. I know you're not a big fan of Bananagrams, but oh my gosh, I'm always pulling it out. I love a word game.
Bit of trivia for the listeners there. As an engineer by trade, and I'm not saying you're not, because I know you are, Chris, but as the diehard engineer I am, I don't spell so good. So I stick to math and to physics and things like that. Words were never my friends.
Well, that's your problem, is that I also can't spell, but I've learned how to treat them as board games. And so if you just learn how to treat them as board games, you can still win and enjoy them.
But what if I don't get the right letters and I'm stuck with a Q for 5 rounds in Scrabble?
See? Then you hopefully get an I at some point, because I think QI is like one of the few acceptable non-QU words out there.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So see, there's always
You're
it's
right.
all about
You're right.
It's all about solving it anyway. Even though it's a word game, you could still solve it to win it.
I just got to turn it
promise.
into a math problem instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But again, I can't just put, big numbers out just because they're big numbers. I have to make sense of the numbers. So
Right. Now, one time in high school, I do remember in math class, we played a math version of Scrabble where your tiles are numbers and then you get equal signs and you get all the different, plus, minus, divide. Literally every turn, I used all 7 of my tiles. And it made the people I was playing with pretty upset, and they did not play it with me again. I was the only one that enjoyed playing it. No one else liked it. So there is actually a math Scrabble.
Perfect. I'm going to have to buy that. Annie's going to hate it. She'll never play the game with me.
Yeah, perfect.
There's a couple of games like that. She won't play with me because it's not her cup of tea. But that's okay.
It'll be just me and you. We're the only two that are going to want to play math Scrabble.
Well, it's like Stratego. You brought Stratego for me to understand and learn.
I did.
It's one of the classics. Well, we can talk about Stratego here in a minute. But anyway, yes, we are talking board games. The wide world of board games. There's so many different options. And like I said, you have the classics. You have Monopoly, Sorry. You have Trouble. You have Candyland.
Weirdly enough, Parcheesi was a classic at my
Parcheesi.
house. I don't know if many other people had it, but we played Parcheesi a lot.
How about this one? If you're a kid of the 90s or even the early 2000s, everyone had a copy of Trivial Pursuit of some form.
Yes, but as a kid, I didn't know what it was because we
Exactly.
never actually opened it.
Nobody played the damn thing.
Yeah.
Everyone had Trivial Pursuit. You'd go to your friend's house and they had Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, we had the blue
No one
box with
played
the
it.
gold letters on it. It was, I think, one of the special editions from the
Right.
80s or 90s, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never opened it. It's probably
No one
still
plays.
unopened at my parents' house.
Nobody plays it. Now, there are plenty of other knowledge games out there to play today, even. One that comes to mind is Wits and Wagers. But that one's a lot more fun because it's a little bit more interactive with your friends. It's a lot more betting as your way of trying to make money. And you don't even have to bet on your own answer. You can come up with some crap answer that you know is wrong. And then what you can do is bet on what you think the right answer is. And if you're like, oh, well, I don't know the answer, but John over there, he definitely knows how long a giraffe's heart is. Yeah, I'm going to bet on John's answer because he's going to know it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you still get to learn something, but yeah, it has a different kind of a mechanic in it.
Right. Little trivia, a little bit of other mechanics like betting games.
Betting.
One of
Who doesn't love a little
yeah,
gambling?
One of my wife's favorites. Betting and bluffing. It's like her go-to. She loves it.
So Secret Hitler must be one of her favorites.
We've played it a few times. We did enjoy it. Our main go-to as far as that is Coup.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
We love Coup. It's
Yep.
such a quick play,
Yeah.
but it's got a little bit of social deduction, a little bit of betting, a little bit of bluffing.
Good. So obviously we've talked about a bunch of different games here. Let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of those classics and just kind of break down your base mechanics that you see in them and what makes them the classic, besides the fact that they've been around forever.
Right, that they were the only games back then that
Right.
people really knew.
But if you think about it, board games as a whole have been around for even longer than since the turn of the 1900s because of games like Go and chess and every other variant therein that has existed in ancient mythologies and in ancient worlds that we don't play today. They might be played in small niche sectors, but chess and Go are the two that come to mind. Checkers, even Chinese checkers, to name 4 old board.
Right.
Based
and
games.
you're only getting checkers and Chinese checkers in the 7 board games in one box variety that you get at Dollar Tree.
And backgammon. You get backgammon in
You
that.
get backgammon, you get I don't even remember what else. Probably I don't know, not Parcheesi. Parcheesi feels like it should be in everything. It was a staple of my childhood for some reason. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's been around forever, and
Yeah.
there are games that are staples just because they were kind of the only thing that existed at the time, and then there's games that are staples because they are still great to play. Like you learn the strategy. Like chess is still extremely popular around the world.
Absolutely.
And you learn the strategy of it, and on a face level, you can look at it and be like, that's kind of lame. You're just moving pieces, and then you start learning more and more strategies and more ability of what. It's not just about what the pieces do. It is all about watching what your opponent's doing, planning
Right.
ahead, seeing things, and it really is kind of the OG strategy game that just
Exactly.
really teaches you to start sitting down and focus on what's going on and kind of figuring out what you can do. And
Yep. And it's kind of learning that every piece has a purpose. this is going to sound funny, but the game developers of the time were just people who played the game over and over and over and again and kind of refined the rules a little bit and found tweaks and maybe made one part of it feel a little too overpowered and then maybe one part was a little too nerfed, to use terms of today, till it got to the point where it said, okay, no, this is what chess needs to be. Because I'm sure the original versions of chess, if we spent any good length of time looking it up, is very, very different than what we have today.
Oh, for sure. You didn't have playtesters back then that were getting...
No, your playtesting was
Yeah.
testing it and playing
Right.
it and going, yeah, this isn't working. Hey, how about we make a new house rule that we change it like this?
Yeah, you didn't have a Kickstarter that offered people the PDF to download before it started so that they could tell you what words you misspelled and what rules don't make sense.
You get your pre-alpha version
Yeah,
sent to you,
exactly.
and you just start playing and go, yeah, that doesn't work. You guys are going to have to workshop this. And you get all these free playtesters who have actually paid to be
Right,
playtesters.
they're paid playtesters. But hey, that's what makes games so great nowadays.
It
Sometimes
is.
that
That's one of the great benefits.
you have
So,
people that genuinely care about the product that are trying to help you make it better.
yes. And like you said, those classic games are still around today and have huge followings in their own. I mean, my God, we got The Queen's Gambit a couple years ago, a TV show about chess.
Yeah, one of the few TV shows I've actually watched in the last decade. It was great.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
It was a good show. But it's kind of funny that even such an old board game is still so loved today. And then we move into the early 1900s and we start getting a lot more of the more commonly thought of classic board games of Monopoly, which I keep bringing up because I do think it has a special place in board game history for how important it is, for what it was trying to be at its time, for the cultural impact it has even today, and just the fact that it is still a good game. People hate it, and I could have a whole separate subject on just why people hate Monopoly. And I'm sure there's someone out there who's going to leave a comment going, Monopoly is the worst game in the world. It ended my marriage. This is horrible. Why would you talk about it? But it starts in a kind of an interesting place. You know what started Monopoly?
Capitalism, if I had to guess.
I mean, yes. More specifically,
No.
the Great Depression.
I might have known that.
It was a game born out of the Great Depression. People wanted something cheap, something easy to be able to play. Cardboard was fairly inexpensive.
Yeah.
These little bitty wooden pieces are fairly inexpensive. You be able to make it up and boom, there's a game that now lets you have a bit of that escapism that people were looking for during this time. And it gave people a bit of a capitalistic feel of being able to say, ooh, look at this property I own.
Yeah.
In New York and these fancy places that I hear about. I definitely can't afford those, but look at me. I have hundreds of dollars in my hand. How fancy is this? And it's just, I mean, yeah, it wasn't original because it kind of stole its idea from another game, but Monopoly's the one we have. Monopoly's the one that everyone loves.
And it's still the game people that aren't into board games still would think if you talk about board games, they're going to picture Monopoly first.
Yes, that's one of the most popular because,
Right.
like I said, of the cultural impact it has today. How many different versions of Monopoly do you think there are in existence? And I don't even know.
Probably over like 200. I remember I had Monopoly Star Wars growing up. Monopoly. Oh gosh, I don't know. I've had so many just random Monopoly games that there's one that exists for like everything.
Everything.
There's probably like a
Name a
Monopoly-
sports team. Name
Oh,
a
that's-
popular
that's very
SEC
true.
sports team or any other NCAA sports team.
Speaking of which, my wife apparently grew up playing a game called New Orleans in a Box, which apparently is just Monopoly. It's not the exact rules, but it's pretty much Monopoly, but of New Orleans. So even there,
Which
you
they
go.
even have that.
Yeah, no, there is definitely a like New Orleans Saints one also
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure I begged my parents for it and then probably never played it.
Probably for every state, for most major cities within each state, for most major sports teams within a city.
There's probably a Monopoly themed Monopoly at this point.
Now that would be interesting. I mean, there's Cheaters Monopoly, where you're literally intending to break the rules in order to be able to win. I remember one edition of Monopoly we had, I think it was called the Here and Now edition. I couldn't stand it because it took away one of the most pivotal points in the game, in my opinion, the cash. It got rid of cash. And you had to use a credit card. which I understand the concept. They're trying to pitch it to the new generation.
I feel like I remember the credit card game. Someone I knew
Couldn't
had it. Yeah.
stand
No,
it.
I agree with you.
It took forever because you had this little transaction thing that you had to use, and you had to say how much money was going either to the bank or to the other person, and then you had to swipe the first card, and then you had to swipe the second card, and then it would start singing a song at you. And there was no way to stop it from singing the song at you. And it was like one of 4 songs. I couldn't stand that version. Hated it.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Oh.
There's also, speaking of games evolving, Monopoly Go. Have you played it?
I have not. Annie played it for a
It's a pretty fun
while.
little quick card game.
Yeah.
Like if you're just, literally the first time I played it was after I was done camping with some friends. We got rained out and we're stuck in a Dairy Queen, and we played Monopoly Go for like 2 hours waiting for the storm to pass so we could drive home.
Yeah.
But it keeps the vibe of Monopoly without like all of the, I guess, kind of like additional added, like you kind of mentioned, home rules and downtime and things like that that people have added to the game to make it longer.
Yes.
But you still get all the main mechanics of it. You still are collecting money, you still are collecting the properties, things like that. Yeah, it's great.
And going back to you talking about it being about capitalism, that is how you win Monopoly. Because it is you trying to build a monopoly, having all of a resource, being the only one who has it. The key things that you have to remember when playing Monopoly is there are a finite amount of houses, there's a finite amount of real estate, and there's a finite amount of money. People tend to think what they can do is, oh, we're out of houses? I'll just go get some pennies or whatever little random tokens. Nope, the housing market is fixed. One rule that most people forget and just don't pay attention to is that if you buy the last house, it actually has to go up for auction. Because the housing market's so finite, we can't just let you have it. So we all have to go and auction it off. And if I'm able to buy it for more than what you were willing to pay for it, great, I get that house. Now, if someone else comes along and they want to buy a house and there are no houses, they can't. They want to buy hotels. Okay, in order to buy a hotel, you have to have 4 houses on a property. Well, in order to go up to a hotel, you would have to evenly go up to a hotel on 3 properties at the same time, which means you have to pay for 12 houses and 3 hotels all at the exact same time to get yourself up to that point. And what pro Monopoly players, and yes, I said pro Monopoly players.
There's pro players for every game. It's kind of crazy when you read about a game you casually enjoy and then you find people talking about it on a pro level and you're like, I play board games for fun with my friends. I'm not trying to go pro, but hey, if that's for you, go for it. If you want to be a pro Monopoly player, but I'd probably watch a competition of it, to tell you the truth.
It's fascinating. I've watched 1 or 2 and it was fascinating because what the pro players know is if you shore up all the housing market and there's no more houses and everyone has to go to a hotel, no one can afford that because the cost is so insane that your return on investment is basically none. And the problem is if you were like, oh, well, let me sell the hotel and get back 4 houses. Well, if there are no houses, you now have to sell off everything and you're going to sell it for half the price you paid for it. And so now your property went from having a hotel to having nothing on it. So the monopoly is to buy up all of the houses as quickly as possible and be able to force people to have to pay you because you have 4 houses on there. And don't play any of this game of, I won't charge you this time if you don't charge me the next 3 times. No, that's crap. There's so many other little house rules that just annoy me. Monopoly is a game that's played in an hour and a half to 2 hours, if done correctly. Now, if you know a lot of people who are all playing it the same, yeah, it could take a little bit longer because the betting is going to take, or not even the betting, the whole waging war of how much money I have versus how many houses and trying to say, hey, Chris, I'll buy your last orange if you buy my red. Neither of us are going to do that if we know, okay, well, that now puts so-and-so in a position where they have a set. Yeah, it's not going to happen. We're not going to give a set away. But that's how Monopoly started. Very simple game. Roll the dice, move a token.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of games at that time were that. That's
how most games started.
I guess the peak of board games at the time was roll a dice, see what happens.
Roll a die, move your pieces. Roll a die, move your pieces. And most of them had a very simple square or rectangular board that you moved around. And you reaped the rewards of having moved around the board. And, something like, was it Trouble? where you had to try and get back to your home. Or was that? Yeah, that was Trouble.
Yeah.
But you flipped a card and it determined how far around you made it. So there's just so many different games that all had that same core
Right.
mechanic.
You had Life, which was the spin wheel, but I mean, when it comes down to it, still randomly generated number.
Loved Life. I personally loved that one.
I thought
too.
it was so much fun, but it also the game was pure randomness.
Oh, yes.
Like
absolutely.
I wouldn't crack it open with a group of friends now, but as a kid,
You say
flipping
that.
over your careers and
You know what's a
seeing
good
if you got
time?
the like $250,000 like IT job or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, you know what's a good time? Go to your local bar and sit in there for a while. Somewhere like here, we have Rocktown. Let's go to Rocktown. We'll play a game of life while having a couple drinks. That is a good time because it's super casual. No one really cares. I'm not really paying attention. I'm hanging out. We're talking. We're having a couple drinks. That's a good time. Yeah, I'm not going to have you and Adrian over and us just play life for the evening. Nope, that's not happening. But it's the same concept. You make a random number appear, you move your token a certain number of
Right.
spaces, you respond to whatever the board's cues are.
Life gives you random cards.
Yep.
You roll a random spinner.
Yep.
Literally the entire game of Life is all randomized based off the cards.
Now, are we talking life or are we talking life? Life is random.
We're talking Life, the board game with the spinner.
Maybe there's a giant spinner in the sky that determines
Yeah,
what the random
hey.
number that happens today is.
It's all just a giant game of The Sims, right?
Exactly. We're all just different Sims and someone's playing our character. and
Exactly.
Just laughing at our miseries. But you said your original board game was kind of upward.
The game that I would kind of trick my family into playing because it was the only one that they would play regularly was called Upwards.
Okay.
The game that I used to play a lot with friends when I would go to their house, we would literally spend the night at friends' houses and spend the entire night playing games of Stratego back and forth.
All right.
Like you already kind of mentioned it, but Stratego was the first one that was probably like a strategy game that I kind of had gotten into.
Yeah.
From there, more than likely Risk is what probably started me being like, oh, board games are fun.
Yeah.
And then the one I really remember is probably around late middle school, early high school. Used to go to a friend's house every Saturday to play Axis and Allies. I know we've kind of talked about it before, but it's like that is the one time that I genuinely remember like finishing a game and immediately being like, I need next Saturday to come around. Like I've got to play this game again. Like every single time we would play it, it just was so much fun.
Yeah.
And even I've tried to play it recently and like it's still a good game, but it's still I'm like I see what made it fun back then, but like there are other games I would reach for now for sure, just because there's such a diversity out there of like the kind of games you can play.
Right.
But Axis and Allies was probably the one that really made me get the itch for board games where I was like, I've got to keep playing. Like I need the next session to come.
So break it down for someone who doesn't know much about Axis and Allies. What makes it so different from everything else that had come before it in these very simple generate a random number, move around the board?
So first of all, in Axis and Allies, you're always going to have the board set up. At least the version we played, you had 2 Axis power, 3 Allied power, and all your 5 factions are played by a different person. So everyone kind of controls like where their units go. With these units, it's very similar to Risk. It's basically you take Risk, you build on it, and make it like more expansive. Add a whole bunch of more like features to it that just kind of make it fun. You can build different types of ships. You can build different types of land units. You can do things like that. You also have specific targets that you are aiming for in the games. Like there's capital cities that you know that you need to conquer. Once you get a certain amount, you win the game, or you can do, partial victories, full victories, things like that, depending on how long you want to play. Like, when you're going into this game, you're going to be playing it for a while, but you kind of plan it expecting to be playing it for a while.
Right.
I think it's the fact that it adds a little more strategy every time that you're playing with friends. Like you don't know who's going to play what side, so every time you play, depending on the faction, like you kind of have an advantage in certain regions. It's a game to replicate World War II. Like,
Right.
so obviously, depending on what power you are, like you're going to have more advantage in different regions, and so the faction that you're playing plays a big role in what you're going to do, what your starting plan is, like the different units that you get to start with, things like that. Depending on the faction, you get certain specialties in certain things. Like you might be better with tanks or things like that. It takes Risk and it builds on it to where it adds specific goals that you're looking for.
Sure.
You're also I guess it's one of the first cooperative games I played without even realizing cooperative games were a thing back then. I don't think people called them that. Maybe they didn't. I just didn't know board games at the time. Because it's teams of two. Yep. You're basically 3 people on one side, 2 on the other. You're working together. You're kind of making a plan. You're saying, hey, if I move my aircraft carrier over here and I kind of blockade them to where they can't get over here, can you take care of these units that are over in the EU? And, can you like handle that if I help you over here? So it added, I think without even knowing it at the time, it added a lot of modern mechanics that you see in board games now without me realizing that that's what it was doing at the time.
Right.
But it also still had the joy of rolling dice.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I always talk about, like, we love to roll the bones. Any game that we can play where you're just rolling dice, like, it's so much fun to us. And I know it's all random. I know that, like, you can't control them. But at the same time, like, I think it adds a lot of fun to a game sometimes.
Sometimes. Absolutely.
You don't want your entire game to be based around rolling dice. Like, Monopoly, or I guess Chutes and Ladders is probably a better one to talk about if you're going to talk about movement without no other interaction. Like, literally roll the dice. Oh, I rolled a 6. I fall on a chute. I'm going down.
Right.
Roll the dice. Oh, I rolled a 7. I took the ladder all the way to the top. I win. Like, that's not a fun way to do randomized dice. Randomized dice is when you're like doing battle in games like Risk or Axis and Allies, except for that I might be going with 2 units and they might have 6, but I need to take this risk right now. And there's a chance that those 2 units can take out those 6. Yeah. There's also a chance I get completely obliterated.
Right.
And that's on me.
And, that's kind of how war actually works, is that you have these random situations where you might be able to make it out alive. Your odds aren't in your favor, but when you're rolling dice, you're praying to R and Jesus every single time. And for those of you listening, that's R for random, N number, G for generator, and so people just kind of call it R and Jesus for funsies. Just look it up. It's a whole thing, guys.
Elite speak, I believe, is what it would be called, and that's L33T for anyone listening.
All right, Chris, put that away. Your age is showing.
Does lead speak still show up places? I don't know.
Hardly anymore. That was like prime millennial getting into computers.
Yeah, sorry everyone. I was raised on World of Warcraft.
And Axis and Allies. But you make a good point, because Axis and Allies, Risk, and I would even say something as more modern than the both of those, like Hero Quest, are starting to be these more iconic classic board games that are bringing newer mechanics in that are not just let me roll a die to determine how far I'm moving. Those are great mechanics for teaching someone who's never played a board game how to play. It's kind of like a kid. You don't expect a kid to run out and just complete an Iron Man competition at the age of 2. They kind of have to learn how to crawl, get a little bit of their own freedom of mobility, then start to learn how to walk, then they start to learn to run, then you teach them finer motor skills of different sports and different things like that. Okay, well, I'm not going to throw my kid in on the deep end and have them playing Axis and Allies or terraforming Mars.
Here's Scythe, have fun. At the age of 2. I know you can't read, but boy, have fun with Scythe.
Here's Scythe, here's the rulebook, have a nice day, see you tomorrow. Yeah, that's not happening. I'm going to teach them Candyland, where flip a color. Okay, now you have to find the next color. And you introduce these little mechanics and you build upon it. And I do think that you're right in that Axis and Allies and Risk gave way to a lot more of the mechanics that we have today. Now, it's exploded since then, and there's one pivotal point where it all kind of explodes from for today's perspective. But those are still the classics that people who enjoy board games and have since they were younger are still going to talk about their days playing Axis and Allies, their days spent in the summers with their dad and their sister playing Risk and never fully understanding why they lose every time. Okay, it's because your dad's been playing this game since he was a kid. It's just a different world. He has the strategies. He knew what to do. And he didn't have to go look it up online and watch some guy teach him how to play it. It's just years of trial and error and figuring out, don't try and end yourself in Australia. You're going to lose.
Hey, but when you make that 1 in 1,000 comeback from fortifying Australia, boy, does it feel good.
Oh, yeah, that 1 in 1,000. When you rolled and you had 2 troops and you wiped out their entire army.
They've got to funnel into it, is all I'm saying. It's the most fortified area on the board. So obviously, besides Monopoly, what was your go-to?
It was Monopoly is one I liked, and I didn't even play by the rules. We played a lot of the house rules, not necessarily all of them. We tended to get kind of bored. It honestly wasn't until high school before I actually sat down and read the rule book, because someone's like, "Hey Andrew, how much money are we supposed to get?" And I think I opened it to the wrong page that said something about free parking doesn't get money, and I went,
Yes, it does.
what do you mean it doesn't get money? And it kind of triggered my brain to go, what do the rules of Monopoly actually say? And when I forced my friends to play it the right way, one, they hated me and never wanted to play Monopoly again. Two, I went, oh, so that's how this game's supposed to be played. But we had some variants of the classic of Monopoly. We had the Here and Now edition, like I said, and maybe Here and Now wasn't the credit card one. I think Here and Now was like more popular places across the U.S. with thousands of dollars instead of dollars. We had a Star Wars edition. I mean, most people had a Star Wars edition. Everyone has a Star Wars edition. Yeah. But we played a lot of Life for the PlayStation. There was a digital version of Life that we play as a family, and we'd just sit down, and it was really cutesy and funny, and you didn't have to do anything because the game managed it all for you.
Yeah, we
One
probably...
of those early digital video games, and it was, or board games, and it was fantastic.
Right. We probably had the same one, but we used to have it on our old Gateway computer. I had Life, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and actually Monopoly. Which
Whoa.
I know you said the way to win earlier, which actually the trick to winning Monopoly is that play against all computers.
Yep.
And then on the very first property, you bet all the way up to less than $1 than what the computer has, and they will just keep going, and then they auction away all their money, and then by like turn 3 they have no money, and you win the game.
Oh yeah.
That's actually how you win Monopoly, is playing against old computer programming that doesn't know anything except for, are they higher than me? Keep betting money.
Exactly. We played a lot of Uno growing up, which some don't consider a board game, and it's not, because it is a card game. But I think that even today, card games have a special place in the realm of board games because they're so different. It's not just your standard deck of cards or the Uno set of cards or Phase 10 set of cards. There's so many different things to cards. And even the games you and I play, yes, Magic is one of them, even it's not a board game, but even the board games we like to play have a lot to do with cards in them.
Oh, there's
Deck
mechanics
building.
coming from card games all over the place. And I mean, I'm with you, like they don't consider them to be board games, but growing up in Louisiana, like everybody's playing card games of some sort. At the time, I played a lot of Phase 10, not knowing that that was just a version of Rummy.
Right.
And now, like, almost every chance we get, we're trying to play Rummy. Like, we just love card games.
Yeah.
Genuinely. And there's now board games that do it, of trick-taking games, but at the time, like Spades and stuff like that, where, I mean, you're just playing a trick-taking game, but now there are board games that literally use that mechanic to build on.
And it's just a small part of the greater game. You have to focus on that part of the game, otherwise you're going to lose, and your spaceships aren't going to be able to make it across this vast galaxy, and Derek's going to come out of nowhere and blow you up, and you're going to go, what the heck happened? Oh, it's because he played the trick-taking part better than me. Oh, of course. Yeah. Silly me for forgetting the trick-taking part of my board game.
Right.
I'm not bitter. We just need to play another round of Arcs. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I only spent 6 turns trying to build that fleet that you blew up in one.
Hey, that's the randomness. Sorry, okay? Listen. But we played a bit of Risk, too. And like you said, these are kind of the core games. And I think you even said it earlier. If you ask someone to name a board game, if there's someone who plays a lot of modern games, you might get really random answers.
I tell people this all the time because I will be talking to people and, you know, in work, things like that, icebreakers always come up and they're like, oh, what do you do for a hobby? And you'll say board games. And immediately people will be like, oh, what board game do you play? To which my response is not to tell them. My response is to ask, how much do you know about board games?
It's a good way to do it.
Because if they respond and say, I know that Monopoly exists and I think I played a game or two of Risk growing up, I'm not going to tell you that my favorite board game is Clank Legacy.
No.
Because you're going to go,
huh?
What?
What's that?
And then I'm going to have to start explaining to you every mechanic that is in Clank Legacy. And then you're going to go, I really wish I wouldn't have asked this person what his favorite board game was. I thought he was just going to say Life. So I preface people with like a question back to say, how much do you know about it? Because it is, like, some people will say, you know, like I said, I play some Scrabble. I know chess exists, and we played a lot of checkers. Then I'm going to know, like, I might still tell you a game that's more modern, but I'm going to know to tailor it more to a way that I can explain it to you.
Exactly.
Like, I'm sure we're going to get into this in a second, but it's like talking about games that should be considered new classics, and a lot of people do. Like if someone tells me that, oh, I played a little bit of these games, I played some Risk, I played some games that maybe had a little bit more strategy involved, but I haven't played much since then. I'm going to tell you that like I enjoy Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
Because one, I want you to know about it, because it is the game that I think you should be considered the new classic. It should be the game people think of when they think of board games.
Yeah.
If they don't roll deep in the lore of board games,
Right. Let's start getting deep into it.
Right.
Because there's no more way we can dance around this.
Right.
Before Ticket to Ride, what is the game that you teach people? And before this I'm saying this as before Ticket to Ride became the game that you kind of think of to teach people. What game was it?
Are you asking what was it for me specifically?
Sure. What game was it?
Or what game is it that people would probably tell you came before Ticket to Ride?
Give me both answers.
Okay, if we are talking about once I started finding out that other board games existed, I've got to shout out my friend Josh, because he is the one that started bringing random board games to my house and was like, hey, did you know other games existed that aren't, all these generic games? Like, kind of truthfully had gotten away from board games and started playing more like D&D and Magic and a lot of trading card games.
Right.
And then started finding games that kind of bring that same feel in without actually, I guess, bring in the like D&D feel sometimes and bring in the Magic feel and stuff like that, but without having to spend hundreds of dollars on decks and things like that. So the ones that I started playing, that I was introducing people to get them out of just regular games, and truthfully, I don't even consider this a great game anymore, but it was Munchkin for me.
Munchkin! Thank you so much.
Munchkin
That's the one that was in my head. Munchkin.
And it's got very fun mechanics. The problem is that people start realizing that they just hold all their cards until the end, and then it just becomes a game of attrition of who can outlast everyone else's cards. I think the like mechanics of it are very fun. Like you're going up, you're flipping cards. Sometimes you can fight it, sometimes you can't.
Right.
And you're building on it. You're getting equipment to make you stronger, things like that. But then the first person to hit level 9, the goal is to basically beat level 10 of the dungeon.
Yep.
The first person to hit level 9 almost always loses.
Yep.
Because everyone just starts pumping their cards, like their negative cards, into this person to make them lose and lose and lose and lose.
Yep.
And that is definitely what the game like turns into.
Yes.
But that being said, I think at one point I probably owned like 12 different versions of Munchkin. I mean, I had like a Pathfinder Munchkin. They're like, here's Munchkin, a game that is already set in this like fantasy universe. Let's also bring it into Pathfinder.
I've got a Munchkin comic book.
Yeah.
It is, and for those of you who don't know and kind of are curious about it, it is fun. And I would be willing to play it again with the right people. But like you said, it does become that war of attrition of everyone's holding on to their bomb cards to the last moment. And they're trying to decide, do I hold on to this for me so that I can make myself bigger? Or do I hold on to this card to try and make the enemy's monsters bigger to stop my enemies?
Right.
Because it's not a cooperative game.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like you were talking about, the overall theme of Munchkin is that you basically start out as just this little like lowly fighter. You get a sword and you're trying to crawl through a dungeon.
Right.
The entire mechanic of the game is that you have a card of 5 or something like that, and you have a hand of 5. Some of them will be buffs and things like that. Some will be debuffs that you can put. And every turn you just flip a monster on the top of the door. If you can fight it, cool, you beat it, you get a treasure.
You kick in the door.
Right.
You loot the room.
Yeah. You get a treasure, and then that treasure is probably going to be a piece of armor or something that'll make you stronger. So then when you get higher up, like if you flip whatever the dragon is in the deck, you might actually be able to fight it. But the problem is that you will have people at the table that can either make that dragon stronger or that can put debuffs on you.
Yep.
So the mechanic is basically you're a dungeon crawler who's growing stronger as you go.
Yeah. And it's a really cool concept, and there's a lot of humor to it. A lot of very, very dry humor, I'll say, in some of it. Like I remember the broadsword, which was only usable by females.
Right. Yeah, it's all... Was Munchkin originally made by Penny Arcade, or did they just have they had an Ack Inc. version of Munchkin, but it kind of has that similar vibe of the Penny Arcade, where like PAX started and everything like that.
I don't
And
know,
it's
actually. That's
it's
a
a
good
lot
question.
of it's a lot of comedy involved. I know that there was an Ack Inc. Munchkin. I'm pretty sure because I think I had it, but it's that kind of like humor.
Yes.
And I mean, like it was always fun to like flip cards and see like goofy things like
Oh,
that.
absolutely. The singing sword that
Right.
actually sang. Yeah. And there were so many different fun creatures and the different versions of it, like you said. Yeah, there's Pathfinder Munchkin, which is very much so just kind of the Pathfinder creatures in a Munchkin world. But you also had like Harry Potter Munchkin, Space Munchkin,
Zombies Munchkin.
Zombies Munchkin. I had
that one.
Apocalypse Munchkin, which
I
was
had
great because you
Apocalypse
had the
Munchkin.
Apocalypse
I
deck.
think I had like a love themed one, like a
Ooh.
Valentine. That was either an expansion or it was like a full themed one around Valentine's. Like they seriously to this day they are still putting out versions of
Crazy.
Munchkin. Yes.
It's crazy. But that is a good game
Right.
to get people kind of the next level. Hey, you've played Candyland. You know how to move a token around a board. Cool. Hey, you've played Monopoly. Here's basic money management or resource management, if you will, while moving around a board and kind of some basic strategy. Here's Axis and Allies or Risk, a little bit more strategy and kind of looking at a bigger picture. Munchkin's kind of a new mechanic in hand resource management, character management, and interacting very, very much so with your other characters. But Chris, what's the one game everyone says is the ultimate classic game?
The one that I have never played. I'm
so proud of you.
Catan. And at this
Yes.
point, I refuse to play it just to say that I've never played Catan.
As I'm sure pretty much every person who's listening to this who's ever played a board game knows, Catan, however it's supposed to be said.
Sorry, I've never played it, so
It's okay.
Right.
I call it Catan. I've heard it called Catan. You just go with what makes you comfortable here. Okay? We're nerds. We're right. It doesn't matter. Catan is kind of your original resource collection game. And it is a very fun concept of a game at its core. It makes me think of the video game Age of Empires or a lot of your other resource building games because you start in a very secluded space and based on random dice rolls, you collect resources and can utilize those resources to help improve yourself and help improve this island that you're on. And it is a fun concept of a game. I have my own issues with it, and I don't think it's a bad game, but I think that it had to walk in order for all other board games today to run. And it's older than a lot of people think, because it was made in the 90s.
right. I think it became more popular once other games started showing up. At least, unless maybe you and I just got into board games and then we realized Catan existed. But it feels like it started getting more popular in kind of the 2010s.
Yes, that's really when it started skyrocketing. And I think part of it is because it was a German-based board game, and it took them a little bit of time to get that over to the United States and board games as a hobby to become a thing. Because, again, everyone's playing Monopoly still, even in the early 2000s.
Yeah, family game nights, isn't
Right.
it? Like, didn't they always advertise that when we were kids? Like,
Yes.
turn off the TV and play a game with your family.
Exactly. And I'm sure Catan was on the shelves at Target and Walmart, but nobody talked about it because board games as a hobby weren't really a thing unless you were in the know.
Right.
And you just had to have that one friend who introduced you to that one game, and then you're like, oh my god, these games are amazing. And then you start going to the board game stores and meeting all these people who are bigger nerds than you at board games. And they're like, oh, have you seen this new one that's coming out? You got to try it. It's really cool. Here, we've got a demo set of it. You want to pre-order it? And you're like, yeah. Go ahead, shut up. Take my money.
Right,
I'll
absolutely.
take 3 copies of that one board game, even though I only need one. It's going to be okay. We have to at least mention and recognize Catan
Oh, for sure.
because of what it's done for the board game community.
Yeah. I would rather someone tell me that Catan is what they think of in board games than,
At least they're on the right track.
Right. Because at least then you know, okay, so you've probably played other games.
Mm-hmm.
If you've played Catan, then you've probably played plenty of other new games. Unless you just played that one randomly and then you were like, board games aren't for me.
So I've actually had a similar but slightly reverse situation. Some of our close friends loved Catan. That was their board game of choice. They had some of the others. They didn't really care about them. But their others were the older games. Catan was like the newest thing they ever played. And I said, I'll play some games with Catan with you, sure. And we played a couple just to kind of let me see where they were and how they played games. And I said, I've got something a little bit more challenging, but it's going to be fun, and it's a cooperative game that we can all play together I think y'all will like it. And I introduced them to Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, which is a really fun deck building game that takes you as the characters from Harry Potter through the different books of the game. You cooperatively fight against the bad guys. Okay, well, it's got a little bit of strategy and how are you going to play your cards. It's got that cooperative sense that gives you that feel of camaraderie of, hey, we beat the game, or hey, we lost to the game together. Oh, we should have done this differently, which helps kind of foster that joy of, hey, video games, or not video games, but board games are a good thing. So we got them playing that, and they loved it, and they were like, oh, can we play more? Can we play more? I said, yeah, I've got another one for you. You ever heard of this game called Terraforming Mars? And that was the next level of board game I took them to. And after that, they're kind of like, oh, so there's a lot more games out here than just Catan. Yes, there is.
Yeah. A new classic, in my opinion. Terraforming Mars is phenomenal.
Which,
so much fun.
Thank you again for introducing me to that one.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. I think we played it last night. We played Terraforming Mars last night. We've got a digital copy of it on our computers, and we were playing that last night. So, fantastic game. But, like I said, Catan had to walk. I don't think it ran. It might have kind of tried to sprint for a moment. It has its own flaws. And every board game does. I don't think there is a perfect one. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, truthfully, I've been thinking about this because I'm like, what would I tell people is a perfect board game? And I think I would tell you that it's any game that you and your friends enjoy playing. And I know that sounds like a cop-out.
Very well said.
But, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you have to play Root because, oh my gosh, it's a phenomenal asymmetrical war game. And, with little woodland critters.
Right.
And sure, people like me and you might absolutely love that because there's so much strategy. There's so much, depth to that game that is involved.
Yep.
But I also know that, even just thinking about my wife, her nightmare is, strategy games. She loves a bluffing game. Mm-hmm. She loves social deduction. She loves playing Blood on the Clock Tower, which is kind of Werewolf on steroids is what you're thinking. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'll tell you what my personal favorite game is. I will never tell you what the number one board game that you should play. Everyone should love it because there are so many mechanics in board games. There's no board game out there that everyone is going to love.
No. But that is part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation is there's so many different core mechanics in ways games work. So many different things that make different games good. And even then, just what mood are you in? Do you want to sit down and play a super strategic game that's going to take 90% of your brain power for the next 3 hours? Or do you want something that you can very casually have a movie on and have your friends over and just be chatting for hours? And did we really play a game? No. Maybe we're sitting around playing Rummy for a couple hours. Okay, cool. We still played a game. We did something. We were hanging out. We were talking. We were having a good time. Project L is another good game. It's one of Annie and my favorites, but it's one that we can easily take with us to a bar or to a restaurant and get our snacks, get our food, sit to the side, and just kind of casually play this game for a couple hours.
It's a great bar game.
Yeah.
Because it's very simple to teach someone.
Yep.
If you've ever played Tetris, if you've ever matched shapes up.
Yep.
Then you can kind of figure it out. It's pretty straightforward, but it is very fun. There's enough strategy in it, but also you don't have to be paying attention. You could just be having fun and playing it. There's so many games out there that are like that. And like you kind of just said, is do I want to spend 2 hours setting up a board and then an hour explaining to people how to play it, and then we get into playing it, and then the game takes 3 hours to 4 hours to play?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, absolutely, I do. But also, most of the time, no.
Right.
The game that we reach for the most, definitely when we go over to friends' houses, is a game called Crew, and it's a trick-taking game. You just shuffle cards out, and there's a kind of special mechanic in there that, it's a cooperative trick-taker, and it's very fun.
Yeah.
You just know that, the person on my left needs the yellow 3. How can I get that to them? But the thing is that you can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to watch the board and interact. But at the same time, that is our go-to because it's very easy to teach.
Yep.
And it's very easy to just pull out and play, on the spot.
Yeah. And there's so many games like that. And, talking about where to start someone with board games, we talked about if you're going to talk to someone who doesn't know much about board games and they tell you, I've played Monopoly, I've played this, whatever, you mentioned, in my opinion, too, one of the best games to teach someone, here's what board games can be, in Ticket to Ride.
Yes.
And just so everyone listening, we're not paid to promote any of these games. If someone would like to pay me to promote this,
but
I will happily become a board game playing YouTube person who just plays board games with Chris all day long, and we talk about how great it was. If anyone's listening. The crickets tell me no, but if anyone's listening, please pay me to play board games. I'm there for it. Ticket to Ride, for those who don't know, is a fairly straightforward, simple strategy game, I'll say, because you have a big map of the United States, assuming you're playing the standard edition, versus the Ticket to Ride Europe edition.
Oh, there's so many editions of it too now.
It's wonderful. But the standard basic edition of Ticket to Ride that most Americans know is you building trains across the continental U.S., and you do this by collecting resource cards, which are different colored train cars, and you play your train pieces onto the tracks on the board, building a connected train from one city to another, from Little Rock, Arkansas, down to Houston, Texas, or down to New Orleans, or, snaking your way up to Missouri and then over towards New York through a bunch of different stations. On your turn, it's very simple. You either collect resources in the form of cards, collect a new objective card that gives you extra points at the end of the game, or play pieces by playing your cards. What I love about that one is it's very simplified in what your options are. Some can find it a little too simple because your options are A, B, C, but there is that strategy in you have the route that you want to accomplish that is secret to everyone else. You're trying to find a way to do it with as few steps as possible while also trying to maximize your points. If there's a specific part of your route that is hotly contested, you have to be quick and you have to plan to gather the right resources. You have to be watching what everyone else is collecting to make sure two people aren't collecting the same colored train, because then they're probably looking at something the same as you. Right. So there's just enough of that strategy aspect. There's just enough of that forward-thinking aspect, and it's not moving pieces across the board. It's managing resources, which is a pretty basic and pretty common strategy in a lot of different games.
Yeah, and you've got your resource management, but at the same time, it's like, do I collect the last 2 blue trains I need right now? Or I'm noticing that there's only 2 tracks between St. Louis and Denver, whichever city is out there. One accepts 5 blue trains, one accepts 5 yellow trains. And I'm noticing that the person next to me has 5 blue trains. And if they take that one, I can no longer use that track. Now I'm going to have to go from St. Louis down to Houston, over to,
right,
Denver, or whatever city, like whatever track is left. So like there is that strategy that makes it very fun of like, I've got to get these tracks that I need before someone else. And if not, then I'm going to have to start like swinging down like around the southern states and stuff to come back up to get to where I need to go.
Right.
And also like it has that feature built in where you do kind of get a little bit of randomness, because you can either, when you collect resources, you have 6 cards out, you can pick the 2 colors you need, or if you don't need any of them, you can always draw off the top of the deck.
Yep.
Now you're taking a risk because you might get 2 pink trains and you needed 2 blue ones.
Right.
But it's got the little bit of randomness to it. It's got the strategy involved of like, I know where I need to go. I don't know where other people are going. I can kind of start guessing. Mm-hmm. But also, when there's a 2-car track between St. Louis and Little Rock, and there's only one available, and you're seeing other people kind of looking at it, you're like, okay, do I risk losing resources this turn to take that one before someone else gets it? Because if I don't get that one, then I'm going to need 12 trains to make the same route that I needed to go.
Exactly.
It is genuinely fun, and for the most part, I think a lot of people can catch on pretty quickly and have a blast playing it.
And I think, to what you were saying earlier, I think it needs to be considered one of the classics now. Catan has its place as a classic. I think Ticket to Ride should be right up there next to it as a classic.
Right. I 100% agree. If I ever talk to people, I tell people that I think the new game you should always teach people is Ticket to Ride.
Yep.
I think it's a great intro to what board games can be.
Right. And that being said, you have to want to play more strategy-based board games, because what Chris and I find enjoyable is not what everyone else finds enjoyable. You know, some of my friends, they love the game Hues and Cues.
Yeah.
Which is a fun party game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a big board, but it's got a lot more of a social aspect to it and a lot less competitive. Yes, you can be competitive about it, but it's not about how do I strategize. There's ways. There's always ways. But that's not what it's supposed to be at its core.
Right.
So if you absolutely love Hues and Cues or other board games that are more party-based, go play those. Hues and Cues is a fantastic one. Wits and Wagers, like I mentioned earlier, is a fun party game.
Wavelength is our go-to.
There's another good one.
Wavelength, you can play with a room of 100 people, or you can play it with a room of 4. Like, I'm sure at some point we probably need to like talk about like what makes each different kind of game good.
Yeah.
But the thing about like party games, the thing that I always find the problem is that without a doubt, you pull out a party game, even if it is pretty straightforward. If you have a group of 10 people and people have been drinking and they're like, yeah, let's play a game. I love a game. You get halfway through the rules and you've already lost 5 of them. And then you get 3/4 of the way through the rules and there's only 2 people paying attention. And the 2 people paying attention are the 2 that own the game and already know how to play it. And we're excited to play it. And then you pull out a game and you're like, okay, so is everyone ready to play? And everyone is gone because people, a lot of times when people say, let's play a game, they don't really mean it. A lot of times, definitely if like it's been a social gathering and if there's like 10 plus people around, you've got to have a game that you can pull out and very quickly be like, this is Wavelength. I'm going to give you a clue on a scale of yes to no, of hot to cold. You've got to tell me what I'm thinking. Is a hot dog a sandwich? From a scale of sandwich to taco, what is a hot dog?
Ooh, taco.
You think so?
I mean, if we're going to get into this here, a taco, in my opinion, is that classic hard shell, which a bun can be kind of stiff, and you've got your meat sitting there in the middle. Okay, now you could even argue a taco is an open-faced sandwich, because we're not going to get into that, Chris. Sorry.
Anyway, I just explained the rules to Wavelength, and we just played a round of it. Like,
perfect.
That's what you need for a group that big, because it is a problem with group games for sure, is that if you have to explain too many rules, you lose people so fast. Because most of the time when you're pulling them out, you are pulling them out after people have been hanging out for a while. They want to talk. They want to chat. They've been drinking a little. Like, they're not as interested in playing the game. Like, you mentioned Hues and Cues. It's pretty easy. It's like, I'm going to draw a color in my, like a card that has a color on it. I see the color and I look at it and it's like a color of like yellowish orange, and I say the sunset. Everybody around me puts their chip where they think the color the sunset would be. That's so easy to explain.
Very easy. Very simple. Like, gets everyone going. No problem.
Gotta have that in a group game.
Hello, nerds. Future Andrew coming to you again, because I do have to break this episode into 2 parts. And you might be saying, but why do you need to break it into 2 parts? And the answer is because 2 hours of a podcast is quite a long podcast. Now, don't be afraid. Don't be scared. You're going to get the second part next week. So thank you for listening to the end. Please be sure to leave a comment on what your favorite classic board game is. And I'll see you in part 2 of this conversation, where Chris and I start to dive into more modern board games and some of the more modern mechanics that we find and what we really like. And by the end of it, which ones we recommend to you to start playing. Something to get out there and try a new board game. It's just an amazing conversation. I didn't want it to end, so I didn't cut it short. Thanks for listening. As always, have a great day and keep nerding out.